Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. Okay, greetings everyone, all noble friends out there. Welcome to my channel Mindful Samadhi, and I am Dharma Samadhi. And this afternoon, funnily enough, we're going to be doing some question and answers. So I'm not sure what happened, but late last year I stopped receiving email notifications. I'm sure this is something I've done on my part, on my side of things. But the email address where I was actually receiving questions, I wasn't getting the notifications, and then therefore I wasn't seeing the emails because I didn't actually go in and check my emails. So funnily enough, we have quite a backlog of questions now that I haven't answered for the past 6 weeks or so. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to answer some questions, and I'm going to answer 4 questions today, but I've got quite a few more, so probably over the next 2 or 3 weeks we'll be doing some more Q&A sessions. So feel free to have more questions come through. You can send them via email, but do bear in mind I have got a bit of a backlog now, so I'm going to try and punch through 1 or 2 of these per week. Okay. Anyway, let's get into it. So I hope your weeks are all going well as well. Towards the end of it, it's Friday here, so hopefully your week has been good, and the weekend ahead is also going to be very good and productive for you all. All right, so the first question I have here is, "Hi Bhante, I hope you can help me. I recently watched your video, the 3 marks of existence, and I was hoping if you can elaborate more on what role does the 3 marks have towards our meditation practice. Sincerely, Beverly K." That's a great question. That's a very, very good question. So insight meditation, or what we like to refer to as vipassana, it aims to develop direct wisdom from the practical experience of doing the practice, all right? So what it does, it essentially uproots ignorance, which is avidya, and then what it does is it actually guides us to this path of liberation. So really, the investigation of the 3 marks of existence is actually the very core of the whole practice. All right? So I did a video on the 3 marks just last week. For you people that haven't watched it, I will leave a link in the description, so you guys feel free, you can watch it. All right, so there's really no philosophical ideas to be accepted here on things like faith, all right? It's more about understanding that the actual universal truth, and therefore seeing that all conditioned phenomena must be understood, and it must be understood clearly through our mindful contemplation. So how we go about doing this is by utilizing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And you do this, in order to do this, this will gain us a direct path, or a decent path, into our vipassana or our insight meditation practice, all right? So the 4 foundations of mindfulness is super important here when it comes to understanding the 3 marks of existence. It will bring rise to this if you're doing insight meditation, all right? So in regards to the 4 foundations of mindfulness, I've also done a video on that a few weeks ago, and I'll also leave that link in the description as well for you guys if you want to check that out, okay? So essentially the investigation of these 3 characteristics is not like some kind of side practice, but it's actually the vipassana itself. All right, so without directly seeing anicca, dukkha, and anatta, there is no actual true liberation whatsoever. So the practice of vipassana, opposed to something like samatha meditation, is a lot more gradual. So in the longer scheme of things, it's actually, insight or vipassana is actually a lot more beneficial in the long term. Short term, you'll get some results from doing samatha one-pointedness meditation, but long term, your answer is the insight. So having this insight into the three marks of existence is the most important thing if you're looking for this path of liberation. So each clear moment of insight you will have, it will permanently shift your perception, and then in turn it will make your mind like cooler, so to speak, and then also grounded, and sort of like less entangled in the world and even society for that matter. All right, so hopefully that answers your question, Beverly, in regards to the three marks of existence. Now, the next question we have here is, hi there, Dharma Samadhi. Are you able to tell me how important Sila is for the progress in our meditation? I hope you can reply back to me soon. Thank you. Okay. Hopefully that email wasn't too many weeks ago. So that question there, basically we can answer by saying it's absolutely essential and important for our progress in meditation, because what it does is it forms a foundation for the entire path. Sila, I can't elaborate how important it is. Actually the Buddha repeatedly mentioned to us all that without purified Sila, our proper concentration and wisdom will not fully arise, and it will be very unstable. So it's super important to understand that Sila is the basis for our attainment of samadhi, of concentration, and therefore being the basis for the arising of true panya, or wisdom. Okay, it gives us freedom from things like remorse, agitation. It also helps guard our sense doors. Okay, so which in turn helps us to prevent unwholesome states from arising, because when the mind is not pulled into greed, hatred, or delusion through our harmful actions, it's actually becomes so much easier to maintain a continuous mindful state during our practice. All right. And what it also does, it also aids in supporting potential higher states within our practice. For example, jhanic states and things like this. So what you'll find is that deep jhanas and vipassana insights, they cannot and will not generally arise when we have an impure mind. So you see, in the the Noble Eightfold Path, the three Sila factors are right speech, right action, and right livelihood, okay? And these actually, they precede the samadhi factors of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So understanding this will also guard and protect from any potential karmic consequences, because wholesome conduct will generate wholesome karma, which inevitably leads to favourable rebirths and conditions which are conducive to one's own practice. Whereas unwholesome conduct creates obstacles in this life, and then also potentially in our future lives as well. So hopefully that answers your question. Sila is very, very important. The third question is, my question is, what is the value of walking meditation? All right. So basically, that's a fair question. So in Theravada Buddhism, right, walking meditation is a highly valued practice, and it was fully endorsed by the Buddha himself. He actually recommended it to monks in order to balance prolonged sitting, to maintain energy, and also to cultivate continuous mindfulness. It's not a secondary or optional practice, but more an integral part of the foundations of mindfulness. So particularly when it comes to the contemplation of the body, for example, which is the the first foundation of mindfulness, which is Kayanupasana. So there's actually quite a few good reasons to practice walking meditation. For example, it helps balances and energize, and even essentially it prevents drowsiness as well. So it also aids in us developing continuous mindfulness, which we refer to as sati sampajanya. So, it aids in clearly comprehending our mindfulness practice on a day-to-day basis. And it can also help support physical health in intensive practice sessions as well. And it also, lastly, what it does is it helps us cultivate things like equanimity and patience. And these are both super important for our practice as well. So there's a great value in doing walking meditation. So with consistent practice, walking can actually become as deep as sitting. The mind, what it does is essentially the mind settles, and then things like piti and joy, rapture, and these things arise, and then insight to impermanence becomes clear through the constant flow of these bodily sensations that we have. So as the Buddha said, diligent practice of mindfulness in all postures will essentially lead to the end of suffering. So hopefully that answers your question on walking meditation. Keep doing walking meditation. Don't, don't underutilize doing your walking practice, basically, because the walking meditation is just as important as sitting meditation. It's a different form because, we can see more bodily sensations arising when we're doing the movement, whereas when we're doing the sitting, we're having to observe different. We're obviously having still body sensations, but they're more prominent when we're doing the walking meditation, okay? So keep doing walking meditation, don't disregard that practice, all right? The last question we have, how do I know if my concentration is developing properly towards the jhanas? Thanks in advance, Wiley. It's a very good question. Okay, it's also a very important question as well. I'm sure a lot of you people are wondering. So the development of concentration and towards the jhanas, which are, if you're unaware, they're called absorption states, is actually very gradual, and it's a very systematic process. The jhanas are deep, they're like a deep state of unified awareness and essentially like tranquil absorption, which then proceed by access concentration, which in Pali we call upachara samadhi, okay? So it's important to understand that this progress is not measured by dramatic experiences alone, but by a clear, verifiable sign that the mind is actually becoming purified. You're having this unified awareness, and then you're also getting, you're sort of freeing yourself from distractions as well. So I'm quite sure that you guys will know when you get to these stages, and they will start to arise. I'm sure you will be aware of these. They're quite evident. The first clear sign is like the temporary but complete overcoming of the 5 hindrances. So sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness, and doubt, like skeptical doubt. You will find when they sort of dissolve, this is one good symptom. And you'll also recognize that the mind, it will start to feel very light. It'll start to feel very clear, like clarified. And it'll be more workable for your practice as well, if that makes sense. You should also feel a sense of freedom from things like agitation, remorse, and scattered wandering thoughts. You should get some freedom from that. It will gradually alleviate itself, the scattering thoughts and things like that, once you get the clarity of mind. And also you'll start to see and feel things like joy, and also contentment. You'll see this arise more naturally in your practice. You should also find that your meditation becomes enjoyable and effortless, and you will want to continue your practice for prolonged periods of time rather than forcing the time. So what I mean by that is if you sit for an hour's practice, you're not being hindered by when it gets to the 45-minute mark thinking, when's the timer going to go off, and you're agitated and you have restlessness and all these things are arising. Once you get comfortable with your practice, you'll stop forcing the time. That's what I mean by that. So you don't worry about the timer. You can still set a timer by all means, but it doesn't become a hindrance, so to speak, in your practice, and you're happily, more gladly to sit there for 45 minutes, an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours. It doesn't matter, because these defilements are starting to eradicate within our practice. All right. I must also stress to you though that you need to understand that jhanas are simply tools. It's not the final goal, okay? A lot of you think that the jhanic stages or these absorption stages is like the end goal or the end result or total liberation. That's actually incorrect. You see, in Theravada, they're ideally used as a basis for vipassana, insight meditation, to realize the 3 marks of existence or the 3 characteristics. In essence, true liberation. So hopefully, that can answer your question in regards to the jhanic stage. We don't try and hold on to these too much. These absorption stages are very good, and you will find in your samatha practice they will arise probably a bit more rapidly than if you were doing your insight meditation. But in the long run, I think you'll find the insight meditation is the key, because you can get to the final stages of jhana. You can even get into these formless stages, which we call arupa jhanas. You can get into these stages by doing vipassana meditation. You don't need to be doing samatha meditation, okay? And also another area of caution is don't get too attached and cling to these absorption stages, because they're not the end stages. These are the beginning intermediary stages. There is more. There's more stages after this, okay? So don't get attached to them too much, and my recommendation is doing insight meditation as much as possible, and kind of getting through that dry stage of your practice of insight meditation, and then you'll start reaping the rewards in a more deeper level, because you'll be starting to observe and see the insight of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Okay, so the impermanence, the unsatisfactoriness of life itself in general, or the suffering, and then finally the non-self, okay? So that's the 4 questions today. I kind of went through those pretty quick. I have got quite a lot of questions to go through, so hopefully that guy have answered your 4 questions for today, guys, and I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and until next week, I will do another Dharma discussion on a topic, and I'll probably do 1 or 2 more of these question and answer sessions to get through them, okay? So, te rawan tanai everyone, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Until next time, Sukhi Hotu.